Yeah, I'll react to that, sure.
Motti.
Motti.
Yeah, motti.
Hey guys. That was weird. My name's Connor. If you're new, the original link to the video from World War II, top of the description. I recommend watching the previous episode, but that is up to you, obviously. Of course. Let's learn. The Red Army regroups to crush Finland. Episode 20, January 12th, 1940. Let's go. Hey, Andy. Hey, guys. I did the stuff.
January 12th, 1940. Motti is a Finnish word for around half a cord of wood, which foresters chop and then leave behind them to be picked up later on. In the Winter War, the ongoing Soviet invasion of Finland, it means a group of surrounded enemy soldiers. The motti battles begin in earnest, as this week does.
What?
So
it's a bundle of wood that I understand that part.
Soviet invasion of Finland, it means a group of surrounded enemy soldiers.
Oh, so the Finns referred to a group of Soviet soldiers as motti, which means, okay.
The motti battle.
We're good.
I'm Indy Nidell. This is World War II. Last week, the Chinese continued to make small, piecemeal advances versus the Japanese. The Japanese signed a secret treaty for a Chinese collaborationist government to be set up, but terms of that treaty were made public, and they were harsh on the Chinese. And near the Finnish border, invading Russian divisions were being absolutely destroyed by the Finns. But Soviet leadership has made some big changes to prepare for future offensives. General Semyon Timoshenko, who took part in the occupation of Poland...
It's strange that in the same war, I'm rooting against the Soviets and I'm rooting for Finland. And in the same war, but a few years later, I'm rooting for the Soviets against Germany.
But Soviet leadership has made some big changes to prepare for future offensives. General Semyon Timoshenko, who took part in the occupation of Poland, is the new Soviet Commissar of Defense and the commander of the Finnish campaign. He had previously been commander of the Northern Caucasus, Kiev, and Kharkov military districts. Timoshenko assures Joseph Stalin that he can crack the Mannerheim Line, the main Finnish defense system. But unlike what Stalin's generals said 6 weeks ago, Timoshenko says it will not be a cheap victory in lives. He gets Stalin's promise that he will not be held responsible for the dead. Timoshenko's chief of staff is Georgy Zhukov. We saw him back in our very first episode when he beat the Japanese at Khalkhin Gol. Kliment Voroshilov, who was Commissar of Defense, is demoted to deputy chair of the Soviet Defense Council. And Kirill Meretskov...
sorry, I had to crack my neck.
...beat the Japanese at Khalkhin Gol. Kliment Voroshilov, who was Commissar of Defense, is demoted to deputy chair of the Soviet Defense Council. And Kirill Meretskov, who would run the Finnish campaign until this week, is demoted to lead just the 7th Army in the Western Karelian Isthmus, as those troops are reorganized into 7th and 13th armies. The biggest changes in actual procedure are in tactics, though. There had been no coordination between different types of units. The artillery hadn't been plotted, just pointed at general targets. Field leaders could not call in for supporting fire. Heck, there was plenty of friendly fire even. So retraining is being done from top to bottom.
Yeah, it seems like the first invasion by the Soviets into Finland, the first go, was basically the strategy was inspired by what they saw the Germans doing. And they just said, well, I'm sure we can do that, but that's not the case. Also, the Soviet Union having, a very authoritarian government and not having to worry about getting voted out of office or something like that, and an enormous amount of people and land, it seems like the Soviet Union can use certain strategies that some failures might spell doom for the whole country, but for them, it's like, okay, just give it another shot. It's pretty crazy.
Tactical training that jived with reality and not theory. The main new battle plan against what the Soviets knew are stretch-thin defenses is called gnawing through and is simple. An armored wedge will pierce the Mannerheim line. Waves of infantry then break the whole sector, and the Finns will abandon the whole position. Now, you might think this sounds like what they tried in December, but you'd be wrong. There will be intense branch coordination and proper artillery pre-plotting. Aerial recon has pinpointed the majority of the Finns' fortifications on the line, and a full-scale model of the Summa defense system has been built behind Russian lines for them to practice on and perfect coordination between armor, infantry, and artillery. The coming offensive is going to be anything but a repeat of last month. There is still fighting actively going on in Finland, though. The situation developed quite logically. As the fierce battles continued along the various northern roads, the Finns saw the segments of the Russian columns that they had isolated curl up like worms. They simply stopped and dug in with their panzers and artillery, and the Finns had no choice but to surround them. Soon, Western reporters were telling the world about the Finns' new kind of fighting tactics, but for the Finns, mottis were a distasteful, though necessary evil. The mottis are different from each other. I mean, it depends on what sorts of units are surrounded. Some are only tank units, while some are infantry. Sometimes it's supply units, and sometimes even divisional headquarters. If it's trucks or tanks, they run out of gas pretty quickly. But if they have a lot of ammo, they can mount a powerful defense.
How is this any more, quote, evil than some other tactic? Am I missing something? This seems like a normal... Of course, anything in war where you're killing someone it's not a good thing. But when you're in wartime, especially you were the one invaded, then this just seems like a normal tactic, unless I'm missing something.
And the Finns dig in. But if they have a lot of ammo, they can mount a powerful defense. And the Finns dig in around them. Food supplies in mottis eventually dry up. And even though some food can be airdropped, it isn't nearly enough, and the Finns intercept a lot of that anyhow. When the days become weeks, the lack of food and supplies became dire. So why don't they try to break out back towards Russia? Well, Red Army manuals and orders from higher-ups say that all territory taken must be held to the last man. So they starve and they freeze to death. But destroying them is a tall order. In General Voldemar Hägglund's 4th Finnish Army Corps sector, for example, there are 160,000 Soviet troops in an area of just 100 square miles, most of them in mottis or in the process of being formed into a motti. He can't give them a chance to regroup, so reinforcements are called in, and eventually the Finns number nearly 50,000 men. The real danger is the unsurrounded Soviet 168th Division, which together with the 18th Division and the 34th Tank Brigade have joined forces. Hägglund's forces attack beginning the 6th. They'll reach the shores of Lake Ladoga near Koirinoja starting at the end of this week. Meanwhile, other Finnish units arrive from the west to finish surrounding the Soviet units, and this completes the only actually planned motti of the Winter War. But Hägglund now has 10 powerful mottis in his sector to deal with. There is, as I've said, a lot of public sympathy in Britain and France for the plight of the Finns, but public sympathy isn't being translated into much government action. There are some plans afoot for an expedition to Narvik, Norway's ice-free northern port, from where Germany gets its Swedish iron ore during the winter. The reason for that: the cynicism that characterized Allied policy during the Polish campaign thus reasserted itself. In the early months of 1940, London and Paris urged the Finns to keep fighting because if they quit, there would be no excuse for intervention in Norway. A wild French proposal to land an expeditionary force in Petsamo on the north coast was vetoed by the British, who still declined to clash headlong with the Russians.
Does Finland have an Arctic coast today? So I was almost positive Norway and Russia border each other nowadays. Is this still, does this exist?
Was vetoed by the British, who still declined to clash headlong with the Russians. The French thinking leans strongly towards not directly challenging Adolf Hitler militarily. I mean, they could have been bombing the heavy German industry in the Saar all this time. It's within easy range, and they are at war, but they haven't done so. French Prime Minister Edouard Daladier and company want to get the action as far from France as they can. So they have plans to help strengthen the naval blockade of Germany by cutting the Swedish iron supplies. This will mean violating Norwegian neutrality, either with mines in Norwegian coastal waters or sending troops onto Norwegian land. German ships are currently not respecting Norwegian neutrality in terms of the Norwegian coastal waters. So on January 6, Lord Halifax, British Foreign Secretary, tells the Norwegians that Britain is going to mine Norwegian waters to force German ships out further to sea where they can be attacked. He does not ask for Norwegian consent. And other attacks are being planned further to the south. On the 10th, Hitler sets the 17th as the date for his big attack in the west. Germany will begin saturation bombing of the French airfields the 14th. By now, 2 million German troops have been moved to near the borders of France and the Benelux countries. The forecast is for nearly 2 weeks of clear weather. Also on the 10th, though,
Ardennes.
2 German officers in a Messerschmitt B-108 courier plane are forced by weather to land after they go off course and stray over Belgium. They land near Mechelen-sur-Meuse. Major Helmut Reinberger has the invasion plans in his briefcase and is unable to destroy them before they are taken by the Belgians, who turn them over to the Allies. This is the Mechelen incident. Hitler still plans on going through with the attack, though an immediate effect of the incident is that he decrees...
How have I not heard of that? Or did I?
Going through with the attack, though an immediate effect of the incident is that he decrees no one, no agency, no officer is permitted to learn more about a matter that is to be kept secret than he absolutely needs to know for official purposes. This enables Hitler to keep the political and
I thought that would have been the standard already.
social workings away from military commanders, which might be a good thing for him because, as Martin away from this enables Hitler to keep the political and social workings away from military commanders, which might be a good thing for him because, as Martin Gilbert writes, mass executions had become the method both of seeking to cow the Polish population and of destroying those Germans who were considered unworthy of life. On the 9th, Dr. Hildebrand, chief of SS and police of Greater Danzig, West Prussia, reports that his SS units have executed around 4,000 mental patients in Polish hospitals and also around 2,000 incurable Germans in Pomerania. And here are some notes to end the week. On the 6th, Finnish pilot Jorma Sarvanto shoots down 6 bombers of a Soviet formation in rapid succession. This makes the news worldwide and is reported as a record. On the 8th, the last of 316,192 British children who were evacuated to the British countryside when the war broke out returned to their homes. On the 11th, France announces that no beef, veal, or mutton will be sold on Mondays or Tuesdays. And another week of the war comes to an end. With the Finns surrounding the Soviets, Hitler again planning to attack in the West, and everyone planning to violate Norwegian neutrality. Though the Allies at least aren't going to tell that to the public. I mean, how can they? Britain's supposed casus belli for the First World War was Germany violating Belgian neutrality. How do you think the British public will feel if they now just start mining Norwegian waters and landing troops there? But they won't tell them. See, that's how modern war works. Plans that will surely kill thousands of people are built on lies and deception. And in all of this is the conspicuous absence of U.S. involvement. If you want to understand more about why the U.S. was on the sidelines during these mounting conflicts, check out our episode about the origins of U.S. isolationism in the 20s and 30s in our Between Two Wars series. It is right here. You should also...
So 2 things. One, question. All right. This might seem a little ridiculous the more I think about it, but what if you poisoned, as a war tactic, you poisoned bread or something, and then dumped it as if you're wishing to send it to your own troops, only for it to go towards enemy lines instead, and then they think it went off course and it's free bread, but it's poisoned. But maybe you'd be able to tell by the taste or something. Maybe that's a stupid idea. I don't know. It came to mind. And as far as when World War II starts, so you could say it it started in the mid 30s or the early 30s, mid 30s, when Japan and China started to go to war together. But that's really just the second Sino-Japanese war, right? Or second. And then you could say it's when, the Anschluss happens in Czechoslovakia. You couldn't say that. It's mainly thought of as the invasion of Poland, right? Because that's when Germany is going after a country that Allied powers flat out said no. Or you could say when they took over the rest of Czechoslovakia, but they still weren't declared war on. So it would be the invasion of Poland. But I feel like it's when Britain and France get really involved. Well, France falls soon. And that's when I think of, all the players are kind of in the game. Even the U.S., I think, starts to do some Lend-Lease stuff. And so I feel like we're getting close to the episode where we're in full throttle World War II. Like, it is fully on. It's no longer like a Russian-Finnish war and a Japanese-Chinese war and a Polish-German. It's now like everything. Like it's full game on, and I don't know if you maybe disagree with that. I don't even know what the point of me even saying that is, but I thought of it. So, love y'all. Hope you're all doing well. Would appreciate any comments down below, answers to any of my questions. You're always, you guys are always great with that. Any comments at all, would appreciate it. See you guys next time. Keep on learning. Bye, guys.